Just have you listened to this talk with Maria Gabriel and Hans Ulrich? Wasn't it good? Wasn't it amazing for a commissioner being so awake and being so conscious about what's going on and what's needed to do? I think our next speaker is the perfect follower of this talk. It's wonderful for me to announce Tristan Harris. Most of you know him already. He needs no introduction. I'm sure you all have seen Social Dilemma, the documentary which unveils the hidden truths behind social media and has reached an estimated audience of 100 million people worldwide. Imagine 100 million people worldwide saw Tristan's film, The Social Dilemma. I wonder what this had done in these 100 million people, who really was aware about this film and saw it again as a call for action. Tristan is the co-founder and president of the Center for Humane Technology, which studies the social fabric that technology creates in our world. I suggest that Tristan also consults Maria Gabriel. She needs also Tristan, not only Hans Ulrich. Maybe we should form a combination of advisors for the new Bauhaus in Europe. Tristan is briefing heads of states, technology companies, CEOs, politicians, and in addition of mobilizing millions of people around the world. I'm very grateful that you're here, Tristan. Good morning. It's very early for you. Welcome. You're a role model for engagement and making a difference. We saw each other than on screens, in Davos, together with Ursula von der Leyen. And I really, really encourage you to get to know Maria Gabriel together with Hans Ulrich, because I think gemeinsam sind wir stark. Together we are strong. And we need you, Tristan. So please, the stage is yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Steffi. Yeah, I would be honored to have that conversation eventually with Maria and Hans. Yeah, thank you all for tuning in here. Steffi had asked me kind of after the social dilemma, what's next? What is a vision for how we answer it? And for those who haven't seen, as Steffi said, the social dilemma, was this film that came out on Netflix in September and has now reached about 100 million people in 190 countries and in more than 30 languages. So it's really remarkable that I think what it did was the goal was for it to be kind of an inconvenient truth for the tech industry. That until we had a model for kind of climate change, if you go back to Inconvenient Truth in 2006, if you go back 40 years, for example, you had, and you think about climate change, there were some people worried about climate change who were studying the Amazon deforestation, or there were some people worrying about ocean acidification. There were some other people worried about glaciers melting, and there were some totally different people looking at coral reefs in Australia. Those were different research teams with different understandings and trying to focus on their niche topics. Similarly, in technology, we have a kind of climate change of culture and we lack this unified diagnosis. So for example, we've had people who study attention and distraction. Why are our brains just flittering about and we can't focus on anything? Who can read a book anymore? There's some people who study that. Then there's other people who study political polarization due to social media. Why did January 6th happen in the United States? Why is everyone believing in QAnon? But those are separate people. Then why are people, why are these teenagers having mental health problems because of social media? And what our argument is that all of these things are connected, just like ocean acidification drives the coral reefs, drives also, emissions drive the melting of the glaciers. We have this attention extraction business model that is basically it's built on exploiting and being a predator to human needs, as opposed to being humane and elevating human wisdom out of our human frailties. And to talk about this, I wanted to actually, I don't tend to do this. I get criticized often for not talking enough about positive visions of the future. And my goal is to spend the rest of my time really focused on what to do about all this. My work, our nonprofit is called the Center for Humane Technology. And the word humane comes from my co-founder, Asa Raskin. And Asa, his father was actually famously Jeff Raskin, who started the Macintosh project at Apple back in 1980, 1981. And Jeff wrote a book called The Humane Interface. And what he said was technology is humane if it is responsive to human needs and considerate of human frailties. And our argument at the Center for Humane Technology is that the thing that got us here, the mistake that we made, the philosophical mistake, the psychological mistake, was not actually properly assessing human vulnerabilities and where was technology manipulating and warping human vulnerabilities. So when we have 7 plus or minus 2 short-term memory in our cognition, you can hold about 7 things. That's why in the United States, phone numbers are 7 digits long. But there's a human vulnerability there. And when technology drives you with information overwhelm and you're overloaded, that's how you get a problem called distraction, because our brains are not built for more than 7 plus or minus 2 things in working memory. So imagine if technology were to be actually focusing on that vulnerability and figuring out how can it help us focus on a smaller number of things so our attention is more concentrated, we can get more done, and we're not so pulled in so many directions. So what I want to argue is that a vision for humane technology, which I actually see as kind of part of what I'd like to see as part of a new Bauhaus movement in Europe, is really kind of about a new design aesthetic, a new design philosophy. And that philosophy for humane technology is rooted in an understanding and a proper assessment of human weaknesses. I know that Daniel Kahneman is speaking at DLD, and famously, he influenced so much of us in the field, and especially in behavioral economics. That work, all of that work is in essence an understanding of human system 1, system 2 cognitive biases, emotional biases, all the ways that we make mistakes in making decisions. Now, it's easy, I think, as we have arrived at this understanding of our weaknesses, cognitive biases, system 1, system 2, to then look in the mirror and get confused as a species about who we are. Are we just this weak, Paleolithic chimpanzee who can't resist the social validation and likes that we get from other people? Are we just this weak chimpanzee who, when we're shown outrage by the other political side, we just respond instinctively? What I wanted to talk about is how it's simultaneously true that we are victims of our own Paleolithic weaknesses and are not properly seeing it. But if we let that image in the mirror, when we walk up to the mirror and we see just that image of our weaknesses, we lose track of our capacities. Is that species that's vulnerable to social validation also the same one that put humans on the moon? The same ones that are working on huge climate solutions. We are both capable of so much more and also vulnerable to a system that is predating on human vulnerabilities. And so I think what I want to talk about is how would a humane attention economy work? How would a new Bauhaus for the digital infrastructure that dominates our democracies actually work if it were to respect human vulnerabilities? Well, the first thing is to realize that, again, where this is all going is not just a little bit more hacking of human weaknesses, but a progressive increasing hacking of human weaknesses. So it's important we play that out, because if we look at fake news or disinformation or misinformation today, we don't just care about solving today's problem. We care about solving, skating to where the puck's going to be. So, for example, deepfakes are going to become an increasing problem. The ability to manipulate images, the ability to manipulate text that is completely indistinguishable to your mind. We have to actually get a handle on the fact that our minds are not going to be able to tell the difference. We worry about, virtual social validation from social media today, but you also have this emerging trend of chatbots, especially in a world of COVID when everyone's stuck at home, where in China, for example, there's a chatbot called Xiaoice that I believe after something like 9 or 10 weeks, people say they prefer their friend, this virtual AI chatbot, to their real friend, because that chatbot is always there, it's always available, and it'll say, I love you, and you can say, I love you. And there's some famous percentage of users who've said, I love you to this chatbot. We are worried about, the influencer economy and whether we deplatform Trump and things like this, and we worry about free speech. But if you scan forward to the future, technology is going to offer more people these sort of walking BBC broadcasting stations. If you think about the average number of followers today being, 10,000 followers for the average Twitter or Facebook user, which I'm sure is too high. Imagine playing out 5 years from now when we each are a walking 1 million person plus broadcasting station. When you think about all those trends combined, are we going to be a democracy that can survive all of that? Or do we have to, again, really stop and say, what kind of enlightened society do we need to become to navigate climate change, inequality, inclusion, equity, and actually how do we have technology support that? And so what I wanted to talk about is how humane technology would help us become more immune to our own hackability. And this is a topic that I've spent a lot of time talking about with Yuval Harari, who we did actually a fantastic podcast episode that I recommend those check out, which is that human hackability is kind of the moment when we as a species wake up to reverse engineering our own code. And I think that's how we can see all of these problems. But understanding our vulnerabilities is the path to human wisdom. There's a famous quote by Blaise Pascal that we use at the Center for Humane Technology that is, all of humanity's problems stem from man's and woman's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. I really think about this when I think about all of us addictively checking and pulling like a slot machine to see if we got more likes. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from an inability to be still. And there are unhealthy ways of expressing that inability to be still, which is the pull to refresh the slot machine. And there's a more humane way to be still, which is to actually understand maybe we need just a few minutes of breathing. At our center and in much of our work, we'll often start a meeting with a few minutes of quiet meditation just to sort of ground ourselves so that we're actually in the moment and present. Other human vulnerabilities. Cognition is actually a finite battery. We know from research that our minds, when they have to think about decisions, it actually kind of spends like a battery the amount of cognitive energy that we have available in our day. And so much of our email inboxes and text messages are, we have, there was a hack, we have to change our password for this service. We have to change our billing address. We get overloaded in all of these tasks. What if a world of humane technology would understand that cognition is a precious resource, and a humane attention economy would try to almost be this like mass infrastructure project for conserving human attention. Just like we have to conserve the biosphere, we have to conserve human agency and wisdom. All of these things that technology is flooding our brains with are distractions. And what would it look like for technology to start by understanding cognition as a finite battery and trying to minimize the cost to humans? And by the way, who could implement this? Apple sitting at the top layer of kind of the App Store, and Google sitting at the top layer of the Play Store are almost like the Federal Reserve or the central banks of the attention economy. And they could actually implement incentives, either in the form of rewards, bonuses, or prizes, or actually changing the revenue shares for the companies that actually are all about protecting human weaknesses. We talk about, if you think about political polarization, one of the other sort of areas of our systemic vulnerabilities is these vicious spirals. We just did an interview with the CEO of More in Common, which is a group that measures perception gaps. What the research shows is that the more you use social media, the harder it is for you to accurately understand the other side's political views. For example, Democrats believe that more than a third of Republicans, they estimate that more than a third of Republicans make more than $250,000 a year. That's the stereotype, right? That Republicans are these rich people who just want their own money. Well, the actual percentage is only 2% of Republicans make more than $250,000 a year. Similarly, Republicans estimate that more than a third of Democrats are LGBTQ, and the actual reality is I think only 6% are. And what they found in their research is that the more we use social media, the worse our stereotypes get, the larger our perception gaps of the other side. And this makes us, the more likely we are to have negative views of the other side, the more likely we are to describe opponents as hateful, ignorant, or bigoted, and the more likely people are to say we must win at all costs. So I wish I had more time because there's so much more to talk about. But what I wanted just to say is that this is a vision of humane technology, is one that is centered on understanding the mistake of what is a human vulnerability versus what is a value. According to the attention economy, if what we should reward on the top of everyone's news feeds is what everyone pays attention to, then when you're driving down a freeway and it looks like everyone's turning when they see the car crash, then the world just must want car crashes. So you end up in this world where everyone is just seeing car crashes all day long. That's the enragement machine. The philosophical mistake is the one that we have to correct in a humane technology environment, in a new Bauhaus movement for humane technology. And there's so much more I wish I could say about it, because I actually think it's critical to our ability to fight climate change. Is we need technology that is actually helping us see our collective progress. Because one of the other vulnerabilities we have is feeling like our actions don't add up to a bigger goal. It seems like no one else is making the change. I'm making the change. Just my city's making the change, but the other cities aren't making the change. Imagine humane technology that helped all of us see the positive progress that we're all making, following the bright spots theory of human psychology.
Tristan, thank you so much for this very, very urgent message. I have an idea. In the beginning of DLD All Stars, Daniel Kahneman, Cass Sunstein, and Olivier Siboni talked about noise, the flaws of human judgment. I really want to connect you to these guys. This would be a fantastic conversation, and you should be in it. And let's do this. I try my best to make it happen. Thank you so much, Tristan. You're such an important influencer for us, not in the social media sense of influencer. You're a real influence for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steffi.